All right, welcome to Bet the Edge on Friday, September 9th. The NFL season has started. Thank you for watching. If you are on our NBC Sports YouTube channel, Drew, lot to get to. We're going to break down some games on the week one slate, but first of all, let's talk about last night's game. 31-10, Bills-Rams. Some warning signs for the Rams. Are you changing your opinion about either of those teams?
I don't think you can realistically make it a judgment about either team based on the results from last night, although I do think there are the warning signs that you brought up, I think, are important to digest a bit. The Rams, they played like a team that didn't really have much to play for in the preseason and came out as the reigning champions and were a little bit rusty in a lot of respects. Stafford, clearly not a lot of chemistry with any of his wide receivers outside of Cooper Kupp. I would assume that would change and improve as we go through the balance of the season. Offensive line, which lacked continuity, looked pretty suspect at times. I really thought a lot of sort of the outcome of that game all pivoted really on one play in the second half. I know football is weird that way, but it felt like the sack that Von Miller came up with on a play where they not only chipped him and then they gave Noteboom all of the opportunity in the world to get back into a very defensive stance off of a chip to try to take Von Miller out of that play. It didn't matter. Miller still got to Stafford, and that was a drive-killing sack. And then off of that sack, the Bills score a touchdown and the game is pretty much over at that point. So it was weird how effective the Bills pass rush was against the offensive line for the Rams, which is maybe the key takeaway, because they're going to have to figure out how to get that unit up to at least league average, if not better, if they want to continue to run what McVay likes to run from an offensive standpoint over the balance of the season. Thankfully for them, they get the Falcons next week, so I would not expect to see as poor a performance from the offensive line, just considering who they're up against. But you never know. I think every other question you have about the Rams, I think you absolutely have to table. Anything about Ramsey, anything about Stafford, anything about Allen Robinson, even the running back deployment. Looks pretty clear like they want Henderson. They want him to be RB1. He looked fresh. He looked good. He looked live. So, I think you have to kind of pause judgment everywhere else. And the Bills were the Bills. They had a statement to make, and they made that statement. I thought Leslie Frazier gets a ton of credit for his plan A in terms of how he was going to try to defend. The McVay offense did not blitz once, which is sort of the key to not leaving your secondary exposed, particularly a young secondary that didn't have Tre'Davious White. So that was good. And then I thought the Bills offense had ups and downs, but you score 31 points against the defending champions, you deserve a pat on the back. And Josh Allen, a little bit of MVP equity after that performance, I would say.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple things. One, my concern with the Rams is that it could have been worse. There were 3 fumbles in the game, and the Rams recovered all 3, and they still lost 31-10. Josh Allen also throwing those 2 picks as well, even though Stafford threw the 3. And the biggest concern would be that offensive line is just not viable, which it wasn't last night. Stafford was sacked 7 times. Then the Rams are in trouble. And then I think that would be the adjustment. Not as worried about Stafford or Allen Robinson, but there were concerns about that O-line without Whitworth. And so if that is going to be a trend, then that reduces their ceiling. And the other thing is that, they lost the game. They lost, 0.45 expected wins on the season. And that, I think, basically shifts the Niners into being slight favorites in the NFC West over them now, just because, it's the NFL. You only get 17 games and they've just lost one.
Yeah, the Whitworth point is huge. Whitworth is a future Hall of Famer. And last time we saw a future Hall of Famer on the offensive line retire, it was Marshall Yanda for the Ravens. And that unit has never looked the same. So absolutely have to circle their performance, particularly when they go up against viable pass rush.
Yeah. Okay. So before we jump into 2 of the teams that intrigue us most, we might adjust our prior based on what happens on Sunday. In case you have missed it, Drew, Matthew Berry's new show, Fantasy Football Happy Hour, which I am a part of as the co-host. It is on Monday through Friday and Sundays as well at 11 a.m. Eastern on Sundays, 12 p.m. Eastern on weekdays. The legendary fantasy football analyst is back with NBC and Roto World, doing what he does best, rolling out his love-hate list, breaking down who to start and sit, and much more. And there'll also be plenty of betting information as well, coming from me mainly, and Matthew also jumping in with player props and his lanes too. So check it out weekdays in the afternoon on Peacock and on Sundays too, or listen to the show in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, the two teams that we talked about yesterday in planning for this, that we're going to potentially adjust our prize the most on what happens on Sunday, or at least that's what we're envisioning potentially, and they're playing each other, the Patriots and the Dolphins. Little AFC East showdown, which based on last night, I think these two teams are going to be playing for second place in the AFC at best, AFC East. So the team that you chose are the Patriots. So where's your head at right now with New England?
Yeah, this is an interesting, very, very interesting debut for this offense is kind of where I'm most interested here. I mean, defense as well, actually. The Patriots have had one of the most obvious stock down preseasons, and a lot of it has come from the way that the beat reporters, the people who cover the team day by day, have just not have anything positive to say about this Patriots offense in the preseason and in practice. It's all kind of contingent upon they don't have an offensive coordinator. They're using this hodgepodge right now at defense and special teams coordinators of years past are now this weird amalgamation of an offensive mind. And when you have a young quarterback like Mac Jones who needs to be developed, it's a clear warning sign and red flag. But the market is now pricing that into the expectation of this team. Like, the Patriots are, again, clearly one of the stock down market now, rating them below an average team. But for me, I desperately need to see it in game, because Belichick is a kind of coach where the minute you turn your back on him and you doubt him, he catches you by surprise. And this is, in this game, if they went down to Miami, especially early, to adjust for the heat, I thought that was a great move. No one's really talking about that, but in general, the Patriots have underperformed in the heat down there because of the just the stress that it puts on players' bodies, and that extra time to adjust should provide some bump for them. And if in their back pocket that offense has an ace, that they can play in this game against a defense that I expect to take a step back, this could be a higher scoring game than we expect. I played an over here, expecting that, at a minimum, they're going to run faster pace. At least that's what they've said publicly. That's what they've implied by the way they're running their offense in the preseason game. So, for me, I am interested in upgrading them relative to market if we see any kind of just more continuity, more just smooth and clean operations on offense than what the market is currently expecting. Do you buy that at all, or do you think this is still like you're prepared to take them down if you don't like what you see?
I mean, we're just in a weird spot where the biggest concern about a Bill Belichick coach team is coaching for the first time in forever, basically. And normally I try and skew away and dodge all of the preseason narrative storylines, because I think a lot of the skepticism around the Patriots is, it's amplified by the fact that Matt Patricia was late to his own meetings in Detroit, and he's just he's become somewhat of a comical figure. But at the same time, this is starting to reach the point where, it was reported on The Athletic in the past 24 hours that the Patriots are considering scrapping their entire offense if it doesn't start well, which is that takes it to another level, I think, of materiality in terms of what you read into. But and the market is also buying it too, with the line going through 3. This is just about the biggest movement of late, given it's gone from Miami -2.5 to Miami -3.5. So the market certainly believes in it. I will say the one thing that I would use to temper the pessimism around the Patriots is that I think that Mac Jones is significantly better than the public perception of Mac Jones in terms of, how I rate quarterbacks, how the market is rating quarterbacks in terms of who affects the betting lines the most. Like Mac Jones and Derek Carr, basically the same. No difference there for me. And I think that the public would disagree with that and have Derek Carr above Mac Jones. But Mac Jones was unlucky last season in terms of interception luck, drop luck, and he was still really good and arguably should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year, much to our chagrin. But the Patriots, we'll see. I'm not writing off Bill Belichick yet. Their opponent is almost more compelling to me just because I have no idea what the Miami Dolphins are going to be this year. Last year, they were also one of the weirdest teams in the league. They start off 1-7, then they win 7 games in a row. To be fair, beating almost no one outside of a bizarre win over Baltimore, which I think was 22-10 on Thursday night, which cost me a lot of money. So I do think that they're coming off a really strange season. Obviously, they changed the coach. Tua, put up or shut up time for him, where he hasn't had a viable offensive line to this point of his NFL career. Now he does. He hasn't had great weapons in the past. Now he does. Now he gets Tyreek Hill, who is the NFL's answer to Stephen Curry in terms of just gravity and bending defenses. And he also has Jalen Waddle. He has pieces. And I just don't really know what to make of this team in terms of range of outcomes. I could see this team winning anywhere from 5 to 12 games. The new coach, the unknown quarterback in a way, because we haven't seen him in the best situation yet, just creates all of these variables. So this is the team that I'm most interested to see on Sunday. What's your read on the Dolphins?
Yeah, I agree with your general thesis there. I am buyer beware of the Mike McDaniel experience out of the gate. Like, just considering what he's had in terms of roles and responsibilities in his career to this point, I'm not saying it's not ever going to work, but if it works week 1, if it works where he's covering over a field goal against Belichick, I will have to tip my hat. Like, that will literally be like, wow, well done, young man. Like, holy smokes. But the entirety of the Dolphins rating and how you want to adjust it as we go through the season depends on Tua's development. Tua is in year 3. You typically see these quarterbacks, if they are going to be the guy, they take the leap between year 1 and year 2. Tua didn't have that. He wasn't afforded that opportunity because of what he was dealing with medically and, his lack of, game reps in year 1. And so this is effectively his opportunity to make that leap. And if he does it, this Miami Dolphins team is very clearly in the race for a playoff spot. And if he does not, then, they're absolutely an afterthought and they are a sell. So let me ask you then about Tua, because I liked your breakdown on Mac Jones, because I completely agree with that. His floor is 15. And I don't think there's really a huge downside to that unless the offense is unless the rest of the offense around him is so helpless that you just have to downgrade him. But Mac Jones has meaningful upside, but not like top 10, right? So he's kind of in a very narrow band of 10 to 15. Whereas Tua, I feel like he's got to be starting out lower with a potential upside considering the weapons that's higher and a potential downside that could be quite low to where he maybe even loses the starting job to Teddy Bridgewater. What are your bands on Tua at this point?
8th best quarterback in the league to 32nd best quarterback in the league. Honestly, we just don't know. He was so highly rated out of college too that I don't think you can throw out that prior. His offensive line, he just hasn't been able to succeed to date. So I think, he, outside of Trey Lance, who I think is the most variable quarterback in the NFL this season, I would have Tua second after him. Now, we're going to jump into 2 of the more, stable quarterbacks in a way, Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. But first, I want to tell you guys and remind you about the NBC Sports Predictor App. Go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play. And you have a shot to win thousands of dollars this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football, Major League Baseball, on the NASCAR circuit, and usually in the Premier League too, though there are no games this weekend following the death of the Queen and the Premier League postponing those games. But the other leagues, you can make selections, and there's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Buccaneers and the Cowboys in our Sunday Night 7 contest. Okay, Packers, Vikings. This is going to be the game that has the most ramifications for divisional markets, just because this is the only game where the 2 favorites are playing each other. How are you feeling about Packers Vikings? Line's been moving around between Packers -1.5, Packers -2.5.
Well, I'll leave a little bit of the Vikings enthusiasm for your response here because I know that you have some, some bullish takes on these guys. And while I think from a kind of macro expectation standpoint, it is very, very obvious why anyone would be bullish on the Vikings heading into the season. You're pivoting from a coach who really had completely lost any kind of vision for the modern NFL in terms of running offense. And you're pivoting to a guy who comes from the McVay system where you're expecting at a minimum, some unique some unique scheming, some unique, pre-snap motion, a little bit of an uptick in play action, which Kirk Cousins has thrived on in past systems. So, I think there are plenty of reasons to expect this offense to take a meaningful step forward from what we've seen in years past. But at the same time, I don't love how they match up against this Green Bay defense. We've seen the Green Bay defense against the Rams offense. Those guys have a perfect matchup, and they are coming in even stronger this year with some of the investments they made in the draft and just in general the overall health and stability of that unit. Joe Barry's scheme is kind of perfect for the McVay's kind of style. So in a lot of ways, I would expect Green Bay to kind of give Minnesota a tough time, and particularly if Green Bay can generate pressure without blitzing in this game, I don't know if Minnesota's getting to 20 points. And we're looking at this total in the market that has gotten one-way action. This opened in the 49 range, and it has never even blinked. It's sitting on 47. If you didn't already know, 47 is a key number in the NFL because it is one of the most common landing spots for totals. And I keep waking up every morning and checking the market because I feel like it's going to be 46.5 at one of these mornings, maybe Sunday morning when we wake up. But, there has been no buyback, no interest in an over here from anyone influential. And so, I think that kind of that goes along with my opinion on this game where Green Bay's defense could keep Minnesota very much in check. The question of win or lose then and equity in the NFC North market comes down to, can Green Bay's offense succeed against Minnesota's defense? And Minnesota is pivoting for the first time in like 20 years. They're pivoting from a 4-3 to a 3-4. They are also, in general, a little soft up the middle, at least in terms of the way I grade those run stoppers. And Green Bay rostered right now offensively to absolutely prey on that. And so if Green Bay generates a lead in this game, can they play keep away? Absolutely on the table in my mind. And so those are kind of the matchups that I'm the most keyed in on. If Green Bay is successful on the ground, all of a sudden this game gets real short. If Minnesota has their backs against the wall and is forced to try to throw their way back into it, but Green Bay is generating pass rush with 4, this could get out of hand quickly. I think there will be a time to really put your chips on the table and buy in with Minnesota at some point this season, but I am not seeing it out of the gate. Are you at all worried about any of those points?
I'm very high on the Vikings offense. Generally, I think there's a huge ceiling there with Kevin O'Connell bringing it into the 21st century post Mike Zimmer. But yeah, there's definitely questions about the defense. They're 25th in rushing defense, DVOA. Green Bay are going to love to run the ball, particularly post Davante Adams era. So I think Green Bay are rightfully favorite. I'm most interested in seeing Green Bay's defense, which there are huge disparities of opinion on, where PFF are ranking them as a potential top 5 defense. DVOA thinks they're going to be a bottom 12 defense. So that's what I'm most interested to see there. Also interested to see my boy Rashawn Gary start racking up the sacks for his DPOY case. Let's get going, Rashawn. Just very quickly, just wanted to hit on Browns-Panthers, where there was a huge move in the market yesterday. Are you buying that move that is shifting towards Cleveland?
Well, I'm breathing a sigh of relief because I was holding an absolutely just an awful ticket on Browns. I bet into their money line back when I thought there was a realistic chance Deshaun Watson might get his suspension at least stayed. And so I've been staring at that, wishing I hadn't done that for about 3 weeks. And now that there is a little bit of momentum on the Browns, I'm breathing a slight sigh of relief here. I get it. there's a lot of mismatches for the Cleveland defense against this Carolina offense, particularly their offensive line, in my opinion. A lot of injuries to kind of keep your eyes on with the Carolina offensive line, including the investment they made at center and Bozeman not being available. So, I would expect that Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, if they are up for this game, Baker Mayfield could have a long day. I don't know that we're going to see much more movement. I'm guessing this closes a pick. Do you have a prediction?
My only prediction would be that it closes pick. In terms of the outcome of the match, there's so much unknown. We've got basically two new quarterback situations, two new team situations. In a way, I do think Carolina is being slightly underrated by the market overall. It'd be higher on both their offense and defense relative to the market. I think Baker Mayfield is a lot better than people give him credit for. I think that he is the 17th best quarterback in the NFL, and people are dismissing him as though he's, in the same group as, Carson Wentz. I think he's better than that type of quarterback and has more upside. But it is a little bit concerning that the market doesn't usually sway towards Jacoby Brissett, but it is in this case. Now, just before we wrap up, I'm just going to get to our best bets of the weekend. Now, mine is in that game. It is Baker Mayfield to throw an interception, at least one, at plus 100. He did it in 9 of his last 10 games. And then the last time he was on a bad team, which was the Freddie Kitchens year in Cleveland. Rest in peace, Freddie Kitchens' year in Cleveland. But that season, he threw picks in 13 out of 16 matches. So I think that with the suspect Carolina offensive line and that Cleveland defense, which is going to be their better unit, I think Baker will throw at least one, and it's plus 100. What's your best bet?
I just got to say that was the most memorable of those games where he threw picks that season was the opener against the Titans, where he threw 3 picks and threw the Browns out of the game specifically. So I that one hits me close to home. I love it. I would go with I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think the Falcons are live against the Saints. Concerned about what the Saints are doing from a roster building standpoint. Concerned about some of the injuries that still lurking among that Saints team, and concerned about the mismatch really of Kyle Pitts against the secondary that doesn't really have a body that can match up against him. So Falcons aren't necessarily a team that I think is going to do much this year, but could they shock the world and win week 1? Yes. So I'm going to take them with the points. Plus 5.5 right now has been boosted to plus 104 by our friends over at PointsBet. So be sure to check that out. And I think that'll be a fun way to ensue a little week 1 chaos, because there always is some week 1 chaos, and Falcons beating the Saints would certainly qualify. What say you?
I like that. I like the Falcons. I would definitely be on them at the line. I think their secondary is the most underrated unit in the league, and Jameis Winston's not afraid of throwing some interceptions. The Saints have won 7 of the last 9 games there, but at the same time, I think the Falcons week 1 being a little bit undervalued. Okay, that wraps us up. Don't forget to check out NBC Sports EDGE.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. Drew, have a great weekend, my friends, and we'll be back on Monday.